Today is the Frankenmuth Fondo, and it is 4:48 in the morning, and we are very with it. We're gonna do great. Here's a look at the bike I'm riding today. It's the Canyon Ultimate CFSL. It's my first carbon fiber framed bike of any kind, and I'll tell you, it is my favorite. There's a noticeable difference between a carbon fiber frame and aluminum. And here's a little montage of throwing this thing together, and I am a big fan. Rolling up to the line here, I find Steve and Don with I Love Gravel Racing, who I actually signed up under the I Love Gravel Racing team as well, so we get to have a chat while we're waiting for the race to start. We got a little bit lucky today because it was going to rain, but it has held off for us, and look at just a beautiful start to this race. Now I do want to point out before we get started that you can come to this event and do whatever you want. You can cruise, you can ride fast, you can join up in a pace line, you can just enjoy the rest stops and take it easy, and that's what's really nice. I don't want it to look like this event is overly serious, just because what you're going to see is me going as hard as I possibly can to try to finish as fast as I can. And that's not all that this event is about.
2, 1, go!
We are off and underway on the 2023 Frankenmuth Fondo. Now this is the 50K distance. So last year I had done the 100K distance, and back in 2020 I had done this distance. I haven't been riding quite as much, so I figured I would drop down to the 50K and just go out and have a good time, see what happens. But the competitive part of my brain took over pretty quickly. So there's 136 riders in this group, and I am in fourth wheel right now. And again, like I said, not everybody is taking this so seriously or as competitively, but I just like to go fast. And I know that there's going to be some other riders in here that do as well. Now, one of the cool things about the Fondo is they always lead you out through the first couple of corners, get you out of town safely. So you can see this red Corvette is guiding us out of town. And this is nice because it gives you a chance to settle in. Everybody gets into, a line or a couple of lines or a group, and it's not as chaotic as maybe a mass start could be. But shortly the Corvette is gone, and our first rider who is going for an attack off the front is Andrew. Now Andrew is the winner of this event from last year, the 50K distance, but I actually did not know that at the time. So what's the plan? Well, I have no plan going into this. Ideally, I'd like to get a top 5. And one way to do that is to help do some work at the front, keep it fast, and really try to get rid of as many riders as quickly as possible. Now each time Andrew comes by me, I expect there to be a train of riders that come by, and then I'll drop in and do my turn when it comes up. But it's always just Andrew, so then I end up doing turns with him, and we just work together.
I think I went out a little hot.
And that was basically my way of telling him I'm getting tired. So I inevitably slowed down, and some other riders are going to do some work here. We've got Joel with the pink in his jersey, Mike in the white kit, and a few more riders. But the whole group, I think at this point, is around 15 to 20. Little uneasiness from this rider to our left. You'll have that. Not a big deal. And this rider in the green on the left is doing a ton of work on his own. I just want to point out that in the draft, even in a tailwind, it is a lot easier. You can see my power is dipping down much lower than it was at the beginning of this event. Now this rider in the white does start to have a little bit of an issue at holding the wheel in front. I know what that's like. I know what it feels like to have the lactic acid just locking your legs up. But I identify that as an issue, and I have to close this gap down. Now, in doing so, Andrew actually comes up on my left side and tells me that he wants to attack in a couple of turns. And I am very pleased that he's decided to tell me this information, because it means I can prepare for it. So Andrew and I find ourselves on the front, first and second wheel, coming into this left turn, which was marshaled by a volunteer from the Fondo. Really appreciate that. Was able to get us through there clean and safe, which is awesome. We're back up to speed, and we're only 4 miles in, so there's still a decent group together. And there's going to be a rider on our left-hand side who rolls past us, and they definitely don't know that there's a right turn coming up, which that happens.
Right turn!
So you heard him lock the wheels up a little bit there. Did you get stopped and turned around? And you heard me yelling right turn because I don't want the riders behind us to not realize that we're turning right and then have us a big old pile up. But Andrew makes a bit of a move there, and I don't want to let him do all that work on his own, so I'm going to come through and try to cement this attack and get us into a smaller group. Now, I don't know what's happening behind me. I am focused on just keeping the pace high, moving fast, 109 RPM with the cadence, and we're at 32 miles an hour with a tailwind and a little downhill. So again, not tooting the horn, just saying we're moving quickly. And it feels so good to move this fast, to be on the front of an event, front of a race. And then as we come up this little rise, I'm at 188 beats per minute for my heart rate. 190 is like tap out for me these days, it seems like. So I'm having a hard time, and Andrew comes up and tells us if we work together, we can keep him away. And I have no clue what he's talking about, but I look back and realize that there's only 2 riders behind me and that everybody else is maybe 30, 40 feet behind us. So Andrew goes to the front and he's willing to do the work, but he's actually going too fast for me to get back to him. So it takes me a while, but I eventually drag him back and I let him know I'm back, and he gives me a thumbs up and he continues. So this is the crew at about 7 miles in. We've got Mike in the white jersey, just came out the front, Joel just in front of us, and of course Andrew is here as well. And given that I had a loose idea or hope of getting a top 5, I'm pretty happy with this situation since there's only 4 riders here. Now at 11 miles, it's still just the 4 of us, and we're actually just having kind of a nice day out on the bike. Granted, we're riding fairly hard when we pull, but in the draft you can do less than 200 watts and stay up at that 24-25 miles an hour range. So a little bit later, nothing's changed. We've made introductions, we learned each other's names, and it reminded me that if you make the front, it's not as hard as it was at the beginning of the race ever. It always slows down at some point. There might be surges or attacks, but generally it's going to get easier. So if you can just make it to the front and get into that selection, it'll eventually become manageable. Now I do want to keep the pace high, and in fact right here, Mike was doing a turn and it was really hard. I mean, I was over 400 watts and not really bringing him back. And then he's gonna flick me through, and I was already sort of tired from trying to chase back to him, but I realized we're on a little bit of a climb here. It's kind of hard to call it a climb, we'll call it a slight rise. And in my mind, what I'm gonna do is up the pace. So over 300 watts, and I'm gonna make this hard for the other riders. At least that's what I think is happening. But what's also happening here that you can't see is we're in a straight up headwind, and I've got no coverage from any trees. I'm just eating this headwind straight up. But I'm thinking that the rise is doing more damage than the wind is, and I am completely wrong. Eventually we get on the backside of this little rise, and I realize that when these riders come through, they all look pretty fresh. Nobody looks like they were suffering. And here I thought I was really doing something. And when I fall back into line and see that Mike is coasting and realize that I can actually coast a little bit at 24-25 miles an hour, I realized that I made a bit of a mistake there. But nonetheless, I helped the group move forward. And here, Andrew comes up beside me and says, let's go. We had just gotten this tiniest of gaps on Mike and Joel, and he throws down the hammer and we're moving. Also, you can tell it definitely rained recently because I'm getting just pelted with spray from Andrew's wheel, but it's sunny and blue skies, so not really sure when that happened, but it actually feels like you're getting rained on when you're in the draft on wet roads. But now I've got a situation. I have 6 miles, the total race ends up being about 32 miles, so I've got the 6 miles to deal with Andrew, and fortunately for me, he tells me that he doesn't like to sprint very much. And then I told him, like, I'm not totally sure I'm going to make it to the sprint with you because I assume that he's going to lose me at some point in this last couple of miles. I can see he's putting in an effort here, but it's pretty obvious that's not his full potential there, but it's causing me to have to go over 400 watts for a sustained period of time, and that's hurting. That is not feeling good. I carry a little momentum through this turn, and it seemed like a prime opportunity to attack, so I do spin up briefly. But I shut it down almost immediately because of a couple of factors. How we've still got 4 miles. There's a serious headwind in the last couple of miles. And also, if my attack failed, where I tried to go solo and he caught and passed me, then I've given up that opportunity to sprint where it seems like I might have an advantage. So fortunately right here, Andrew's given me a little chance to stay on the wheel before he opens up his final big attack. And it takes everything I have to cover this. So if he had done this any earlier or it went any longer, that might have been it. Because you can see there's a gap there. It's not huge, but I'm starting to lose that draft effect and eat more of this wind than I want to. So I tuck in as close as possible, try to take some deep breaths, relax for a second. And as I roll up next to him, we get hit with the most significant headwind I've felt all day, and it blocks us. I mean, it takes our speed down to about 20 miles an hour when we've been rolling 24, 25 all day. But the great thing about bike racing is that we're both subjected to the wind. So even if he were to try to go away on his own, he would be facing that headwind. When we're side by side, we're both dealing with it. So really the best thing we can do is work together and try to draft. However, I've let a gap open up. Andrew sees that when he looks back and puts in another little effort, which I have to spike up and shut down. And every time I have to do that, it's eating into my ability to stay with him and whatever power I would have for a sprint. Now I get next to him right here and I tell him straight up, I can't come around you, because he was still holding a power that was too great for me to actually get in front of him. So he slows down and gets on my wheel, which is totally okay with me. I want to do work coming into the finish. You know, in terms of what would be best to win the race, it would be to just sit on his wheel, and then if he slows down, that's okay. We just cat and mouse it to the finish. But I really want to earn this. I want to try to help us get to the finish as quickly as possible. Now right here, I'm starting to consider how I can win this race, because there's a right turn followed by an immediate left turn, and then that's the finish line. And I realize if I can come into this turn first, which is why I'm on the front right here, it's going to be really challenging to try to come around me through these turns before the finish. So I take the right turn as quickly as I can. I open it up so that way when we get into this left turn, I'm into this turn first. And we see the speed pick up to 28 miles an hour because now we're not in the block headwind. And I'm not sure how much I need to slow down because I rarely take turns this fast, but I lean the bike over and I'm just going to open it up. I'm not going to throw my hands up. I'm not going to do any celebration. I just sprint all the way through the line. And I've just won my first ever bike event, which feels so good. It feels awesome. It's time to let this soak in, roll in, and enjoy the after party with some friends. Now, I always forget to take any footage after the race is over, but thankfully, Bender Aerial Photography has been nice enough to allow me to use some of their content to wrap this video up. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody from the riders that I rode with throughout the race, volunteers, everybody who puts this on, Frankenmuth. It's a tough thing to put on a race, and they've done a really good job. They even had a record turnout this year, and there's always something happening in Frankenmuth. So there was like a food truck thing going on. You can see us here patiently waiting for some food. All around, great day. Really enjoyed ourselves. And thanks for watching.